Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, how are you? Smriti, did you want to share something? Now you can continue. Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, I'm vegetarian.
Okay.
I only eat eggs. I don't eat
Okay.
any chicken, fish, or for protein. I take that protein powder without sugar.
Okay. You take pea protein? Do you take that?
No, whey protein.
Whey protein. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to talk about that in the protein or diet class,
Okay.
where how you can get protein, how much, and especially for vegetarians, that becomes a challenge. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So Smriti, you found sprouted sunflower seeds, you said.
No, pumpkin seeds.
Okay. All right.
Wait, I'll show you.
Okay.
Wait, I'll show you.
Okay. You're free today, Rashmi?
Yeah, I'm free. And all my questions are answered. I literally following this WhatsApp group. So I was looking for this olive oil and all that. So I got the answer there itself.
Okay.
So,
Today we'll talk a little more about olive oil.
Yeah, thank you.
This is the one which I got it.
Oh, okay. Everyday Matcha is the company. Okay. All right.
No, this is green tea, and this one
Okay,
is this one is sprouted.
Okay, this is the sprouted pumpkin. Luckily, I mean, Costco is one of my favorite places. It's like I feel like I'm in a candy store when I'm in Costco.
Then this one I got. This one I got.
Erythritol, yeah. Erythritol also is very cheap there. Monk fruit you could buy. Monk fruit sweetener is also quite tasty. So, Mr. Ramchandra, do you also follow like a sugar-free lifestyle? Are you there?
Yeah, one second. Yeah, actually, I'm a diabetic.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Well,
yes, I can.
I have HbA1c reading around 6.9.
Okay.
And fasting blood sugar is 110, and PPBS is around 190.
Okay.
I'm on a medicine called Galvesmet. I don't know whether you.
Yes, I've taken them all almost, not all, but
yeah,
medicines actually.
Since my fasting sugar was not dropping, so I am taking night only. That the medicine is taken only at the night. I think now it is slightly down, around 6.5 last time I checked up.
Okay.
For some other reason I had to check. So it came down by some few points.
Right.
But we are Brahmins, and we are vegetarians mostly.
I am.
And we use a lot of rice most of the time, morning, afternoon, even night also, doshas or idli only.
Right. So have you been able to replace rice, avoid rice?
We replace it with millets, mostly with millets only.
Right. Another thing which I feel like people can do is probably take a little bit of rice and a little bit of millets and mix it. So you get the mouth feel that you're eating some rice and then there is some substitution of some millet. I don't know. Only thing is that the cooking time for both will be slightly different. So that is something you have to practice and perfect it. But these are certain things that I do. I mix too much of the other ingredient. Like if I'm making something like the other day, I made a millet and sprouted moong khichdi, like I was saying. So I'll put very little of the millets and more of the sprouted moong. And then you have all of the spices that you normally use. So you, at least to a certain extent, can fool your brain into thinking that you're eating the carb that you like. Matching the flavors sometimes helps. Then again, I always say that, I have been on this lifestyle for a long time. So my taste buds are they're very bichara. Don't complain much. But if you are new to it, initially it is a challenge because there's too many changes. And that's the reason, it's best to go gradually rather than hate your life completely. But that's what I do. I just make odd proportions. So even if you want to eat, dal and rice, then the rice is like a 2 tablespoon rice in a big bowl of dal, something like that. And I put spinach or some leafy green in the dal itself, which is again at a different proportion. Because if you see people, I mean, no criticism, but people will make dal palak or something, and they feel I've added palak. But if you think about it, the quantity of palak that goes in their preparations generally is so low that
No.
person you're not eating as much. Like so many mothers will tell me I give them healthy meals for lunch or dabba, and which is a paratha. And just imagine how much vegetable can be stuffed into a paratha. Even at the most, there is no comparison between eating and roti. So these are things you have to just become slightly more aware. When everything is great with your health, you don't observe these things. And then eventually, when you start thinking that, realizing that you have to make adjustments. But I have been observing this for a long time because I've been trying to, live healthy. And now I would suggest that nobody should eat roti. That's a different thing. These are just certain things I want to bring in front of people, that traditionally Indian meals and especially vegetarian meals are extremely carb heavy. Otherwise, I just want to see the chat question first. Can you please scroll down? Yeah, sure. I'm just going to discuss this quickly, the page also. So before that, so we have very
The camera.
so generally the lifestyle or the food habits of Indians have been good in the sense everything is made from scratch. And earlier generations, they used to almost shop every day, make the masalas every day, other than the dry spices. Everything was made fresh, everything was cooked fresh, everything was cooked with love by the mother or the woman of the house, eaten by hand, sitting down on the floor. So many wonderful habits Indians had. I think the only thing that went wrong was the carb heavy meals, the proportion of the meals. And as people became affluent, we started eating more and more. So probably in the olden India, you were getting fewer calories and you were working a lot more. And the environment was different. It was toxin free. Your gut bacteria was healthy, because earlier you would, if you were a farmer, but even if you were not a farmer, you would go out, you would, travel and get exposed to so much bacteria. As a farmer, you would have mud in your nails, you would have the bacteria in your hands, you will wash your hands a little bit and eat. And all of this symbiotic gut bacteria and hands and your body was full of all of this healthy bacteria that was helping. Eventually, what happened is we got westernized. We realized that we want to use toilets which are western. We want to sit at the table and eat. We want to not eat with our hands sometimes, which was again another source of getting the bacteria. And we started using antibacterial soaps because everybody is bombarding us with 99% of the germs are going to get killed. And we didn't have these soaps. Kaun mar raha tha? I don't know what we needed to kill all of these bacteria and all everywhere. Also, everything is sprayed. When you go to these stores and malls, I feel it. If you become observant, you realize that they have sprayed these, perfume sprays and air fresheners throughout. And there is so much toxin that is going on inside of you. And these are the things. I mean, that toxin thing is still a modern thing, but I regret the fact that Indians stopped following a lot of their traditional ways. Those were really working out for us. But certain things, of course, we need to unfortunately change is eat less carbs. And we want to eat the carbs which are nutrient dense. So we are not cutting down on all of the carbs. We want to eat fiber rich and protein rich carbs and vitamin rich carbs. So we are going to be eating beans and yams and all of that. We just want to cut down on the empty carbs like rice and damaging carbs like wheat. I think we have most people who would join today. Let's start. So I shared the food list and then I added a few more what do you call it, foods to the list. So this is the list that I generally follow. These are the foods that I generally eat, but I would actually like you call to also suggest foods, because I might have missed out something. And, after a point, you start repeating the same old things that you like. And I would really like to expand that for myself. So certain things that I have coffee in the morning, then I have a green tea or something in the afternoon or evening. So those two foods are covered. Like, and this is the list to just to give you a reminder that this is the list I created, because it is believed that you should have 30 foods, 30 different foods in a day, and 30 is not any golden number. You basically need to eat a lot of different foods every day. The reason being that you want to feed all kinds of varied bacteria in your stomach. There are bacteria who are eating carbs, there are bacteria who are eating yams, there are bacteria eating sugar. And generally, the bad bacteria eat the sugar and the parasites eat sugar and they thrive on that. So you want to cut down on that. But there is a bacteria that is eating each of these and that is helping you digest these foods. So whether it's protein or whatever. So the more variety of foods and the more fiber that you give them, you're keeping them healthy. If you start restricting your foods, then you will see that with a lot of people, and that's something age related and something that you get into a rut with. But what happens is after a particular age, you will see a lot of people saying, and it's very common in women, that when I eat food outside, I get an upset stomach, because you sort of get in a comfortable zone of repeating similar foods every day, and you have a small group of bacteria. So anything different that you put into your stomach, it reacts to that. It doesn't know how to digest it. And with your age too, sometimes the digestive system gets weak. You get IBS or irritable bowel syndrome sometimes, even by being a diabetic for a long enough time. And I actually had that problem and I didn't realize it. This used to happen with me. Every time I would eat a little more or eat outside or this and that, I'll be like, oh, I always get an upset stomach. But it used to be fine like within a day. After a while, I started thinking that if I'm getting an upset stomach so often, I'm obviously not absorbing the nutrients in those meals. So if I'm getting an upset stomach even once in a week, I have wasted all of those meals of those 2 days. And that is when I started looking into it. And then, once you start looking into it, there's a lot of information now available. And I started reading about this. I always want to talk about gut health, because I somehow haven't taken it as a separate topic, but it is one of the most important things. And as I repeat, like, so many times, that there's so much research happening on this. But even with my son, I had observed that he was at the time, he was about 8 to 10 year old, and he was really slim, like really thin. And in the morning, and he, before going to school, he would have 2 eggs and 2 dosas, because I was never a supporter of wheat. So, I wasn't giving them as much wheat. So anywhere you could give wheat, I would give dosas. And he would eat 2 eggs and dosas. He would come back, he would take some dabba, I don't remember, but he would come back from school and he would be like, okay, give me eggs. So he'll have 2 eggs, again, 2 dosas. He'll have some milk and, and he was active and everything. But I was wondering why he is so thin when other mothers are complaining that my kid doesn't eat at all and their kids are like nice and chubby at that age. And so I asked my pediatrician, who's actually, so he said that, no, don't worry, it's sometimes genetic, and I have definitely not passed him the genes of being slim. But that's what I was told, and he took it very lightly, and I took it lightly for a while, but it kept troubling me. And then one day I realized that his digestion was not like, that good. So, I started looking into this even more, and I found a wonderful dietitian who had taken her training in London, and she used to work with kids with gut issues. And she was working with kids with autism and ADHD and all kinds of these neurological disorders, so many things, just by correcting their gut. And she gave me so much information. I already wanted to cut down on dairy because I was thinking there's some issue with dairy. Every time he would love milk because he would have it with Bonvita, and he just loves sugar. But every time he had milk, he would just lie down for like a couple of minutes. And I didn't observe that for the longest time. And then one day I started observing that he'll be quiet for some time and then get up and go. And that's when I suspected that that was an issue. So I cut down on wheat, dairy. I started giving him a lot of probiotics. I started giving him enzymes for digestion. I started giving him probiotic pills. So everything that she suggested, I used to make a lot of probiotic drinks at home. So kefir, water kefir, and they would, like, my family, my kids hated it because I was such a tyrant at the time, about eating and drinking, all of those things. But he actually started putting on weight, and he had that die-off that they call. So if you are infected by candida, which is again thriving on sugar, if you're so all of those bacterias and living beings which are thriving on sugar, and I cut down on sugar completely, let me not forget that, they died off, and you get a flu kind of a thing. And he got sick a couple of times, but then slowly he started putting on weight. He had dark circles under his eyes, slide that went away. He was growing normally, so he was like, the height or anything was never a problem. I'm just pointing these things out because a lot of parents will probably just ignore it. It will seem like they're growing fine and they're active and this is not an issue. But because I was observant about his digestion, and how he was gassy, and he never complained because he was not that kind of a kid. But these things can affect their neurological development, their growth, their moods, which I have not seen a problem with him. But his weight definitely increased, and his digestion improved completely. So his stools, his gas, everything got resolved. And it's a point where you want to go back to your allopathic doctor and say that you said there was no problem. And it's ridiculous, right? So people may say, what are the proofs? And these things are not proof. But if you see, there are so many people who have benefited by just changing the composition of foods. And now let me go quickly. So that's the reason to eat 30 foods or 50 foods a day. And it's not as tough as one would think. So coffee, tea, what I do is in my coffee, I add cocoa powder or cacao powder because that too is high in polyphenols. And it also helps the taste. I add coconut milk or coconut cream, or you can even add whipping cream depending on what you want to, The thing is that coconut milk breaks your fast a little less. Of course, you don't want to put too much because it is slightly sweet. But that's what I add. Then I add MCT oil to my coffee also. Then olive oil is one oil that we cook in. We use a little bit of coconut oil. Mostly it's olive oil. And sometimes if I'm really like longing to eat something in a certain oil, then mustard oil. I forgot to add sesame seed oil. So sesame seed oil is also seen to be and it has a lot of benefits. The recommendation for family is there in the PowerPoint. So, don't stress about that, whether it's here or not. And then among protein or non-vegetarian foods, I eat eggs. So eggs is my main protein. I try to limit it to 2, but since I was on keto, I got used to eating more. So maybe 3. So even if you're vegetarian, if you can add eggs to your diet, then that's a very easy add. Then among cheeses, I suggest eating goat cheese, buffalo mozzarella, A2 milk cheese, or A2 milk paneer. Any of these are good. Let me remind you, A2 milk is also buffalo milk. So it's not just the desi cow. If that is not available, you can buy milk from any known dairy that you trust, and their paneer can be used. So and these are, each of these are also multiple foods. So I just put them together because someday you'll eat one and some other day you'll eat something else. Millets, there are various kinds of like many millets. You can make flour with some of these millets and even use it in a porridge, as we had discussed. Then among meats, it's chicken, fish, meat, prawn, shellfish. Now, I don't eat too much meat these days. So it's mainly fish and prawns and any other shellfish like mussels or clams or anything, and little bit of chicken. So that's what I eat. All of these foods, you want to source it from reliable places. So you want to, as far as possible, eat chicken that is desi chicken, or it is, cage-free kind of chicken. Although it's so difficult these days. I mean, there is somebody who sells organic chicken in Pune, and that chicken is 600 rupees a kg, whereas a regular chicken is some, I think, 200 or something like that. That is the difference. But then I think it's worth it. So that is that. Now, fish also, you want to buy from, you want to buy fish which is not farm raised, because these days in farm raised fish, they feed them grains and corn and this kind of meal. So where it was believed that fish has good fats. And when we say good fats, it's omega-3, which we are going to again talk in the PowerPoint. But it has good fats, and so omega-3 is the good fat. But unfortunately, when it is grain fed, the fish has higher amounts of omega-6. It's not helping you. It doesn't have to be eaten at all as a health food. If that's the fish that is available to you, don't eat it. So even when it comes to prawns, I don't buy the farm raised prawns, which are very common, and they are cheaper. But I try to buy the ocean fish, because anyways, we are from Bombay, so we don't eat freshwater fish as much. So it's convenient. So I buy only those. Even within fish, if you want to have my recommendation, you should be eating smaller fish like sardines, mackerels is fine. Then there is other anchovies, different kinds of fish. But the smaller the fish from the ocean, it's better, because the larger fishes these days are contaminated by mercury. So there are other heavy metals that are contaminating the larger fish. So you want to eat those fish only as a treat, but not as a regular meal, part of a regular meal. So Smriti has asked, is it okay to eat paneer? I would say no, because I mean, let me read the question first. I have stopped dairy. Then is it okay to have paneer and cheese? So as I said, the fermented cheeses are okay. Paneer is not really fermented. So if dairy is causing any issues to you, then you should not be eating paneer, unfortunately, because it's just, water removed kind of milk solids. So we spoke about fish. Then onions is one thing. Tomatoes, you want to peel and de-seed them, as I said. So I do it in the pressure cooker. I make a paste and I just put it in the freezer and use it as and when I want. Then there is garlic, there's ginger. I think I shared the old sheet. I had added a few foods in that. Unfortunately, I don't. Okay. Anyway, so there's garlic, ginger, then there's coriander, parsley, mint, basil. So any of these herbs. Also, what is it called? The betel leaf. The betel leaf is also good. So you can add other leaves, and the more number of leaves and herbs you can add, the better it is, because again, variety. So you want to change every day. We are used to using more of coriander, but in place of that, if we start using more of the other herbs, you'll also get a different taste, and you get the benefits of eating a variety of foods. In leafy greens, spinach, fenugreek, all kinds of different leafy vegetables. And then there's Swiss chard. There's some that are, Western, which are easily available these days. Salads, you can have lettuce, you can have arugula, endives. There are different kinds of salads these days. The more colorful you eat your salad to be, the better the antioxidants and the polyphenols that I talk about. So again, more variety. Cabbage, broccoli, Chinese cabbage, I love. It is delicious. If you haven't eaten it, it's large, buy it. It's delicious. You can make kimchi with it, or even stir fried. It's really good. And then there's Brussels sprouts. Then there's polar bee, and I have spelled it wrong. And that is atkol, actually, if anybody knows atkol or alkol. It is a round root vegetable. And it's pretty hard, but it has a slight sweetness. So that's another healthy addition. Then there's purple cabbage, again, high in polyphenols. If you have a good recipe, share with me, because I find it a little peppery, a little strong to my taste, but I've never tried probably cooking it very well. Then there's pak choy, which is another Chinese vegetable. So these are all vegetables in the same family. They are called cruciferous vegetables, and they are really good for your gut bacteria as well as your stomach. So, and for your gut lining. So that is one set of vegetables. Then there is these gourds that we have: bottle gourd, snake gourd, cucumber, eggplant, anything with peel and seeds. Peel it and de-seed it. And then, cook it or pressure cook it, whatever. Beans, we have spoken about. There are a lot of beans you can choose from, at least 10 in India. We are lucky that we have a lot of recipes of that, and we've traditionally always been eating a lot of beans. So it should be soaked, and either sprouted or non-sprouted is fine, and then pressure cook. But sprouted will be even better. Lentils, same procedure, soaked, sprouted, and pressure cooked. Then there is the root vegetables or starchy vegetables like yams, sweet potatoes. If you can find purple sweet potatoes, they are wonderful. Yams also in purple color are available. I think it's not the season right now, But until a month ago, I could find it in Big Basket and it's delicious. Then there's another white yam that is available in India, which is also quite delicious. It's called, these are both called konfad in Marathi. I don't know what it's called in Hindi. Just you will have to be a little more observant. Then there's arbi. As Maharashtrians, we don't eat as much arbi, but if you do, then good. So again, these are all starchy vegetables, so you don't want to be eating them with dal, rice, and then that. This is something you can probably include in a snack, or if you can replace your carbs or grains, that is the ideal way to eat it. As I have told you before, eat your vegetables, then you eat your fat and your protein or beans, whatever it is, and then you can eat this in the end. So that should be how you eat it. But if at all, you can eat it as a snack, because people are at a different level of tolerance to carbs. So I tell you what I do, but nobody, I mean, you don't have to follow it exactly. If you're getting, like I said, great sugar levels, if your graph is pretty much flat, it will of course go up and down a little bit with your meals. But if it is almost, again, flat is ideal. But if it's fine, you're getting a good HbA1c, you're a healthy person, you can tolerate carbs better. In any of those cases, you don't have to be as strict as I am. I'm going to tell you the ideal thing, but I always say that do what is a small change to you. Make smaller changes rather than disappointing yourself or losing interest in doing anything at all. And even when you look for expectations, remember that you got here in maybe 20, 30, 50 years. So you're not going to get back within a month or so. That kind of an expectation is inhuman, and that means you're looking for something that is automatic, and something that will happen automatically will go away automatically. So if you have caused any health issue to yourself in a long run, please be patient with yourself, and please trust your body to heal itself. If you lose that trust and start saying that, I to can't lose weight, I to can't skip a meal, I to can't eat low fat, mujhe to ye chahiye. So no, when the time comes, you will make the choice and you will make the better choice. So right now, do just what is possible. So there are different kinds of ferments. So fermented foods, I have a lot of fermented foods, and probably I'll show you a picture of my refrigerator one day. It's stacked with fermented foods. I make kimchi, which is a Korean. It's considered as, all of these foods are now considered kind of like superfoods. So it is the Chinese cabbage, which is fermented, and for about from anywhere from 1 to 3 days. That's how it is done traditionally in Korea. And then it is put in the refrigerator. All of these foods are like that. So there is kimchi, like I said, the cabbage that is fermented. Then miso is a soya bean fermented paste. And since it is fermented, it is good to eat. But if you were to eat a non-cooked or even otherwise bean, the better one is the fermented variety. So miso is a paste you might have eaten in Japanese restaurants, or if you had the soup, it is a soybean paste which is fermented. So it has an umami taste. It has a slight smell, and I love those smells. Then there's sauerkraut, which is a lot of, like, I think Eastern European, Germany, they have this regular cabbage of ours, which is fermented. So I have like a playlist of fermentation videos. You can go and check those out, where I show you how to ferment them. They are very easy recipes. Generally, you're making a salty brine and putting your fresh vegetables in that and leaving them on the counter. So if you can make them, there's another advantage which I'm going to come to later. Then Indian pickles are also good, because they also get sour and they are fermented. Then there's another drink that we order from outside. So it is a beetroot drink which is fermented. It's called kvass. There are drinks like kombucha, which is a fermented tea drink. You have heard of all of these things. So there are these lot of different drinks that are available in the market. It's always better to make your own, because sometimes they are full of sugar. Finally, they want to sell their product, and the best way to sell anything is to add a little bit of sugar. Even if it is a housewife who's cooking for her family, she knows that you add a little bit of sugar and things taste better. So that is the reason you want to be very careful with these ready-made fermenters. And the other thing you want to be careful, now kimchi is available even in the market, but what you want to be sure with is that it is not pasteurized. So it's not cooked and the bacteria isn't killed. You want raw kimchi, which has the gut bacteria. It is still in the fermentation process. but do follow my videos. I will probably share a link of the playlist of the fermentation. Then the other thing is, dairy ferments, which is yogurt and kefir. You want to make these at home with A2 milk. Then there's apple cider vinegar, which I take in the morning. And sometimes if I remember, then I try to take it with my meal because, like I said, it helps in the glycemic index. It lowers the glycemic index of the food that you're eating. It also is an insulin resistant. There are nuts. The good ones are walnuts, pistachios, soaked and peeled almonds, macadamia nuts, pine nuts, Brazil nuts. Generally, the fatty nuts are good for you. Hazelnuts is something you can add to this list. Then among seeds, black and white sesame seeds are good. The spices are also high in polyphenols. So what I realized is that I need to start putting more of the garam masala, because fortunately we already have in India this masala which is ready made. I buy different kinds of masalas. I buy garam masalas from different companies, and I also make my own masalas because this just helps you make your food taste different on a daily basis. Otherwise, if you use the same masalas, then. And I put random things in random things, like I use sambar masala for khichdi, and I'll use, I don't know, garam masala in something or whatever. But you want to be careful. You want to know the basis of it. You can't just do random thing. But try to add some of these spices, because spices like cardamom, cloves, these are really good for your health. And we fortunately have it in our. You want to cut down on red chili powder, definitely. So that is because, as we said, if you can have peeled and de-seeded red chili powder, then that is fine, which is not easily available to us. The last one is turmeric plus black pepper. So what I do is, there is curcumin in turmeric. You all must have heard about how it is a superfood now. And the best, or I think the only way that this curcumin is absorbed in our body is in the presence of black pepper. So what I have started doing is that I have a box of masalas, which I think most Indian households have, in which you have turmeric in one of those boxes. I take turmeric and black pepper in equal proportion. I just mix it and keep it in my turmeric. So every time that I'm adding turmeric in my meal, there is some black pepper that goes in, and I don't have to worry about the absorption. So that is my trick, and I think you can follow the similar thing. Again, just remember that you have to add a little more turmeric because half of it is black pepper. I will be sharing this sheet with you, which had a few more things, few more items, especially which are non-Indian, which I had added, like you could, try eating a lot more pickles, like there's cucumber pickle, then there is olives, there's water chestnut. So there are a lot of these vegetables. Then there are funguses, dried funguses, seaweeds, which is high in iodine. Then there are different kinds of mushrooms. So oyster mushroom, shiitake mushroom is really good for you. And I love the taste because it's meaty. And it is also available in India in a dried form. So you can easily use that. It's a great meat substitute because it has the bite of meat. A lot of you are vegetarians, so I don't know where to stop. So that is a good addition. Seaweeds also come in different varieties, so that can be added. I really am struggling to think of what were the things that I had included in that, but definitely I will share. Unfortunately, I did not add cauliflower. I'm just surprised that in the cabbage family, cauliflower is there. So I'm going to edit this sheet and send it again to you. So let's start off with today's class. I'm going to go to my PowerPoint now. We're going to talk about fat. I'm just taking a minute to look for my AC remote. So can fat or saturated fat give you heart disease? American College of Cardiology, August 2020, all the top cardiologists got together to discuss, should we place limits on how much saturated fats we eat or people eat? And the conclusion that all of them came to from whatever their observation was for years is that many years of studies have shown that there are no actual benefits of reducing saturated fats and no benefit on cardiovascular disease. In fact, people who ate more fat had protective effects against stroke. And stroke is like a heart attack for the brain. And so, if there is a blockage in the brain, then you get a stroke and you might be aware. Is everybody aware of it? Then I won't go to the basics. But So generally, quickly to say that a particular part of the brain will die if you get a stroke in that area. And depending on what function of the body it is controlling, that function generally gets affected. Sometimes it is speech for people. Sometimes they get paralyzed. Sometimes lower part of the body. Sometimes they don't understand things. Sometimes they lose their eyes. So that is a stroke. And my father has had a stroke. So I know about it, that the doctor had at that time told me that because he had a cardiac issue as well as he had a stroke first, and then we realized that he has a cardiac issue too, and we were not able to decide between whether we need to get a bypass for him or should we let the stroke subside. And finally we got a godsend doctor who made everything clear to us and made the most sense in one statement. He said that if something goes wrong with your father's brain, nobody can help him. But if something goes wrong with his heart, I can save his heart. At least we can save half of his heart and he can continue. And I'm saying all of this to give you an idea of the importance of brain and stroke. Because if you have a tendency to get blockages in your heart, you're realizing it because your heart is screaming and telling you. But if you have blockages, that means you have a tendency to have blockages all over your body. A blockage in your brain leads to stroke. A blockage in your heart leads to a heart attack. Blockage in your legs leads to PVD, which is blockages in your legs, and they will kill the muscles there because they are not getting blood supply. So you need to understand that heart, of course, we want to focus on, but you want to lead a healthy lifestyle for the whole of your body. So they found that eating more fat was actually helping people, their cardiovascular issues. The reason that doctors believe otherwise, in the sense that, that saturated fats are bad or cutting them down is good. The reason that the doctors believe otherwise is because it
I'm in that this side.
Okay. Please mute yourself. So the reason it is believed because LDL cholesterol lowers when you cut down on saturated fat. But it is found that the lowered LDL cholesterol is actually the large LDL cholesterol molecule. So LDL is two types. There are small molecules and large. And the small molecules are the ones which get stuck and cause blockages. The large are not the ones that are really affecting us. And there is part of the cholesterol I have read, which is actually good for you. Unfortunately, in our blood reports, you will just see a number called LDL cholesterol, and you won't know which it is. So that is the reason doctors thought that that is good, but that was not really a good thing that was happening by cutting down on saturated fats from your diet. Diabetes and other metabolic diseases actually contribute highly to heart disease. If you're a diabetic, they say that you have 4 times the chance of developing a heart disease. So, and I may be repeating this a million times, but we think that the day we get blood sugars above the range that we have been told as normal, we become a diabetic. But just imagine, it just doesn't happen overnight. This is something that is happening for a decade in your body, unless you have accelerated it and then it's happening in 5 years. But generally, this is something that is happening for a decade. It is developing, and your body is struggling for a long time to metabolize the sugar and use it in an efficient way. And then finally, when it doesn't do it or is not able to do it and it gives up, that is the reason, that is the day you see it as blood sugar levels being high and that you're a diabetic. But try to understand, this is not happening overnight. So even that is something you're going to have to reverse slowly. So the other thing is that is the reason people should stop this or, check their fasting insulin levels, HbA1c, and know beforehand. Because just because you've not been labeled that you're a diabetic, you're still insulin resistant, you still have metabolic disease. So you still need to stop yourself from eating carbs and try to reverse it. A lot of doctors, even for diabetics and dietitians, will give you again, the word I almost can say that I hate when somebody says eat a balanced meal, because unless they tell me exactly what they mean by a balanced meal, that word means nothing. And that is what I have seen, that dietitians will give you, at least in India, as I've said before, cut down on the rice, eat 2 rotis, 1 vegetable, dal, beans, this, that. Sometimes there's potato also in that. So even that meal itself is so carb heavy that my question at that point is the fact that you're a diabetic and the fact that even at night our sugar is rising in the morning. So, for example, you eat your meal, you have a wonderful sugar, you take your medicine or whatever, and you sleep. A lot of diabetics will see a high fasting sugar level. Now, where is that sugar coming from? It's coming from the stored sugar in your liver, the glycogen stores that you have. So, if a person has so much glycogen where the sugar goes high even after taking medicines and not eating all night, why would you ever need to eat any carbs? Why does it have to be said that we need carbs? We is a very broad term. Not everybody needs. Of course, a baby needs because they grow and burn carbs and all of that. So at that growing stage is a different thing. But once you've come to a stage where somebody has told you that you have enough sugar, if any dietitian suggests that you can still continue eating rice and wheat and bread a little bit and Mari biscuits and some other biscuit and balance mein khao, thoda khao, I think that itself is wrong. You have to first start off with cutting all of that down, getting your sugars in wonderful ranges, and then you can start adding. You can't, do this middle ground thing because you're never going to see any results and it's not going to be encouraging at all. And you'll be taking high level of medicines. So their style is that balance mein de do or goli bhi do. Uski jagah pe I will say cut down on things that you don't need for your body and don't take medicines. Okay, so past 50 years of research on fat, we were on fat and I just keep going to carbohydrates and metabolic this because that is something that causes inflammation and blockages. And the reason we talk about fat is because we've been brainwashed to think that fat and saturated fat is what is causing all of these blockages. So food is not just macronutrients, fats, carbs, and proteins. What kind of fats you're eating, what kind of carbs, and what kind of proteins you're eating is making or breaking everything. Just like we said, all calories are not the same. Of course, all fats are not the same. There are certain fats which are extremely inflammatory. So we are going to cut them down. Carbs too, we don't want to be eating rice and wheat and simple carbs or sugar. So, and good carbs, which are complex carbs and which have proteins, those are definitely good for us. And same goes for proteins. You don't want to be eating, proteins or even dairy products, which are full of antibiotics and all of this. So, as far as possible, you definitely want to eat a good quality meal. And the quality is what makes everything, makes or breaks everything. So, in 1980s to 1990s, there was this revolution of the low carb diet, low fat diet being good for you. And whatever research happens in USA, it is the only research that is available to us. And whatever they declare, depending on what makes sense to them to make money, because that US is very, very economics and finance driven. For them, everything is about the profits, and eventually probably the whole world is going to follow that, because when you don't do that, you start feeling you're a failure. So US convinced the whole world that low fat was the way to go. And it really did not help, because since then, all of these diseases have just increased. Since the point when everybody got brainwashed into thinking that fats is something you have to cut down. Even today, when I have said so many times, even my own, friends and family, a lot of people will say, but what about the calories? Because even today, people are conscious about calories. And when they say calories, it means fats, because fats is the most calorie dense food. So if you want to cut down on calories, people will jump to cutting down on fats. So there were like lots of studies have happened. In 1997, there was a nurses study about heart. And they saw that no matter how much fat you ate, it was not connected to heart disease. 2001, top researchers from Harvard Medical School wrote, it is now increasingly recognized that the low fat campaign has been based on little scientific evidence and may have caused unintended health consequences. That is it. And for years, it has caused health consequences. And this has come out in 2001. And even now in 2022, people are not aware that they should not cut down fats. And it is really, so the way this cutting down on fats is affecting is that they wanted to promote grains. They wanted to promote Kellogg's cornflakes and grains to be eaten as meats, because if you start vilifying fats, then you're cutting down on eggs, and then people are saying, oh, egg yolks are bad for you, and this is bad and that is bad. And now what are you going to eat? You're going to eat a grain rich meal. Now, a lot of you are vegetarians, so there is no choice for you, but of course I'm going to help you to make the difference between Kellogg's cornflakes and a millet khichdi, or something which is full of vegetables and sometimes even beans. If you want, you can add to that for breakfast. So what happens is Kellogg's is again a processed grain. So that corn is sometimes, especially in US, it is GMO, but it is a flattened grain which you see that it melts in your mouth. There is nothing that you have to chew. If you read on the packet of cornflakes, you will see it is extremely high in carbs and it has a high glycemic index. Plus, on top of that, a lot of times they will add sugars to it and you're drinking or eating it with milk. Now, milk itself, a cup of milk is 15 grams of carbs, as we had discussed, and a teaspoon of sugar is 4 grams. So you can imagine how much sugar is in the milk itself. Now, a lot of people are not even eating it with 1 cup of milk. It's sometimes like a huge bowl. And at that point, when you're eating this, you're thinking you're eating a healthy breakfast. So cutting down on the fats was not the only thing that affected us, but what we replaced it with. Because fats are very, very satisfying. If you eat a protein-rich meal or a fat-rich meal, it is extremely satisfying. Now, if you're not eating that, you're going to substitute it with something. And what happened is everybody started substituting it with grains. And sometimes even refined grains and a lot of these modified foods like, flakes, especially all kinds of flakes with a little bit of sugar. And then they'll say honey and we start thinking, oh my God, it's so healthy. It's so good for me. It's got honey. So we've grown up through all of these thought processes. I am sure everybody resonates with this. So that is there. And then you're eating it at a point which I always say that you should be fasting at. So if you're eating for breakfast something like this, something with a high glycemic load, and if you're somebody, because I talk about diabetics is because diabetics are measuring their sugar. Regular healthy people are not, so they are not going to be aware of this. And they will also study the diabetics to know what is happening in a general body. So generally diabetics wake up with a high sugar, and everybody wakes up with high cortisol because it gives you energy to get your day started. At that point, if you're also loading yourself up with another bunch of carbohydrates and you don't really need it, then it will damage your body. It is going to take your insulin levels up and all kinds of things are going to happen in the body. And since that time, people started getting fatter and fatter. After they cut down on the fats, people started getting fatter. Now, studies began to show that eating saturated fats was protective against heart disease and stroke. There was another Japanese study that happened on 58,000 people with various quantities of fat. So they divided them in 5 groups. One was given the lowest and one, a little more, and there was the highest group. It was seen that the people with the most quantity of fat in their diet had more protection from cardiovascular disease, stroke, and total mortality. Now, isn't that shocking? But these are all studies that were done. Then there was another largest study that happened in 2017, 18 countries, 135,000 people over 7 years, and they saw the same results, that eating saturated fat was good for them. So what is the role of fat in our body? It provides energy. It is something that is burned down to make carbs when we need. It cushions and helps it cushions the organs. So it covers most of the organs. It helps the cells to grow and reproduce. It keeps our body warm by insulating. So under the skin, we have a layer of fat. It is necessary for manufacturing hormones. And there are certain vitamins like vitamin A, D, E, and K, which rely on fat for absorption. So if you are not digesting fats well or absorbing fats well in your body, you may not be able to even absorb these vitamins. So this is, I hope that from this series of lectures, you understand how our body works as a whole. A lot of times advice is given on very specific things, but just cutting down on one thing could be affecting a lot of things in your body. For example, you could go into nutritional deficiency just because you thought that you're eating too much fat. Now, fat digestion starts happening in the mouth itself. So saliva has lipase. Lipase is the enzyme which cuts down on fats. So when you start eating, the saliva mixes and it starts cutting down on the fat molecules, fat digestion enzyme, which starts breaking fats into small molecules. And that is the reason you need to eat slow and by chewing more, which is always advised in Ayurveda or naturopathy, that you want to chew. And I think this is something everybody knows by now, is that saliva has a lot of enzymes. So depending on what you're eating, that enzyme is start. At every stage there are enzymes to break each of these foods, but saliva has those. So people who have who eat very fast will see that they have a lot of bloating issues because their food does not even get chewed properly, but also mixed with saliva. So even when you're eating when you make smoothies, so there are certain doctors who advise you to make green smoothies, not with bananas and not the sweet kind of smoothies, but green smoothies with a lot of green, leafy greens, a mix of leafy greens and a little bit of fruit or whatever. The advice is that you need to chew your smoothie, because now you are not chewing this, you're taking something that is already liquidized, and you won't land up chewing, and then it's not going to mix up with the saliva and the digestion maybe affected. And that is why, I mean, ideally, I think that you should not be drinking smoothies, but it is an easy way to consume certain things if you're bored to eat. So, I mean, I won't say anything completely against it, but ideal. I mean, there's always something ideal that I'll talk about. Is that, yeah, I mean, eating everything whole is going to be ideal. But yeah, a lot of people will not land up eating a beetle leaf and then spinach leaf and this leaf and that leaf. So smoothie works for those reasons. But always chew and try to mix everything with saliva. And if you eat consciously, if you're sitting in front of the TV, you won't land up doing that. You'll do it your natural way. But eat consciously, so you do that. Now, once it goes down, 30% of the fats are converted into triglycerides in the stomach. Then it keeps continuing. As it moves to the small intestine, it is converted into fatty acids. These are the things that are absorbed, that are used for energy in the absence of carbs. Now, within 2 to 4 hours, all the fat is converted to fatty acids with the use of bile as well as pancreatic juice. Now, all of these spots, there is some enzyme or the other, some lipase that is coming to help the fat break down into smaller and smaller molecules, sometimes mixing with something and all of that. And then fatty acids, monoglyceride, diglyceride, triglyceride, all of these, whatever molecules are made out of that, are absorbed by the small intestine, and then through the lymphatic system, it enters into general circulation to be used as energy. Now, let me talk about animal fats, because those are the fats which are vilified the most. Those are something that everybody says are not good for you. So as most of you heard me talking about blue zones, I'm going to repeat. Blue zones are those areas in the world, those regions in the world that have been identified by researchers to have the most number of centenarians, or people who are older than 100 years old. And they have the most number of those people and density. So it's, sometimes most areas have. But those zones are called blue zones, and a lot of studies happen there, especially diet related and lifestyle related. So there are certain things that are in common with them, and those, it would be foolish not to observe those and include them in our lifestyle. So what do these populations, the population in blue zones eat large quantities of dairy fats. That is one of the common thing in all the blue zone areas. Now, what kind of dairy fats they eat? They generally have herd A2 cow animals. So it's a lot of times sheep's milk and goat milk. Cheese is made from that, sometimes fermented. Then they also have A2 cows. So it is that dairy and products from that dairy, and they eat all of it. So they will eat all of the fat. They will not leave any of the fat. In fact, the 2% milk or 1% milk or skimmed milk that is available sometimes, even in India now, most people don't eat it. But, again, that is something that comes out of a factory, and that should be a general indication that this cannot be good for me. Because not always will you have all of this information in your head and go out shopping. So one basic thing is, it should be a red flag when you feel like this has been modified too much. So it's best to eat that milk with the fat. So have the whole fat. Even the fat that is as a ghee or butter is not bad for you. You can eat it. As I said, dietary saturated fat does not increase blood cholesterol. So we are not talking about the saturated fat in the blood. We are talking about dietary. So like how, it was very simplified earlier. If you eat fat, you become fat. Now, these are two similar words. Fat is a similar word, doesn't mean that eating that fat is going to have the same process and effect on your body that it is going to be fat on the body too. The digestion is a completely different process. Once it gets into your mouth, it's going to be completely different. So these two things are not linked. So they eat a low quantity of animal meat and animal fat. So when I talk about animal fat, it's not the dairy fat. It's the saturated fat that they are eating. The animal fat that they are eating, which is less. Now, again, like I said, it's an observation about the blue zones that somehow all of them eat low protein. They have not found any society which is long living, which eats high protein or any of these carnivore diets or whatever the latest diets on which people are getting great results. So I don't want to be judgmental, but I want to tell you the observations that scientists have made is none of these societies are the ones which are eating high animal meat content and also animal fat. Now, to go back to why animal meat and animal fat is not the ideal way to eat is because traditionally animals were eaten. I have said this before, but not in the quantity that is available to us. So if you have like a large steak available to you, if you were an olden, time from an ancient times, person from an ancient times, you would not have like the best cut of meat on your plate in a large quantity. You would be sharing it with your family. You would be having to eat the, you would get bones because you're sharing in the community. If you're killing a large animal, you were generally killing and sharing in a community, and you won't be getting so much meat. You will be eating the organs which are more nutrient dense, which have more nutrients. And the other main point that I wanted to tell you is that the animals of today have much more fat, as you know, that they have been given hormones, antibiotics, all of this, and they've been fed grain to fatten them. So the quantity of fat that is on an animal today is much more than what it was in the earlier times. So to think that we are eating an animal just like how it was eaten and that is the natural meal of humans, the animals itself are very different. You may not be knowing probably that there is this delicacy called foie gras, which is a French delicacy. It is duck's liver, and what it is it's let's not get there, but it is not a pleasant thing. What they do is that they open the mouth of the duck forcibly with a tube and they put in grains so that when the duck doesn't want to eat, it is force fed, and they're forcing grains down the throat because they know that fattens the duck and gives it fatty liver. So it's very clear that grains makes your liver fat and makes you unhealthy. But where was I going with that? So yeah, so the animals of today are all fed grains. The cows are eating grains, the chickens are eating grains. There was a time when they used to be eating worms. If they were free range chickens, they are supposed to be running around and looking for worms on their own. So they get exercise worms and they eat that, and they're fed the natural diet, and then their fat is good for you. In this case, it's not happening. So I would not suggest that too much. Dairy, I don't, I go ahead and eat the fat from dairy like ghee and butter, but make sure that it is a good dairy. It is, it's not too many hormones, too much antibiotics, because all of these things actually settle down in the fat deposits. So if you're eating dairy fat too, you want to make sure you're getting the best quality that is available. Animals today, even if organic, are fed organic corn and grains. So when you say that your chicken is organic, it is very clearly allowed to feed them with organic corn and grains. So it's very important to have the word free range. So even in eggs, I buy free range eggs because to a certain extent, at least, the hens are supposed to be running around in the pasture. Now, what they are fed after that is again something we don't know, but you just try your best is what you can do. So the fat content is higher, also more omega-6 fat as compared to omega-3 fat is there in the eggs and the chicken fat because of the grains. Now choose dairy from organic grass-fed sources if possible. Also choose wild caught and smaller fish, which I said earlier, because similarly the fat from the fish also changes if it is grain-fed. Kinds of dietary fats, kinds of oils. So monosaturated fats is olive oil, avocado oil, canola oil. If you can buy non-GMO and organic, which is not available in India, so you can easily cut this from the list. And almond oil, peanut oil. Peanut oil should not be eaten, it is inflammatory. So almond oil is good, but we don't cook in it. So you can eat it a little bit if you want to drizzle on a salad. Saturated fats are generally fats which will solidify at room temperature. So coconut oil, palm oil, butter, ghee, these are all saturated fats. Polyunsaturated fats are two kinds, omega-3 and omega-6. Ideally, we should have a ratio of 1:1 of omega-6 and 3 in our body. But unfortunately, in the modern diets and how the food has changed, again, this information and this research will come from US. So in US these days, people generally have a ratio of 1:20. So omega-3 to omega-6, and omega-6 is inflammatory. And after hearing me like 4 or 5 lectures before this, that inflammation will cause cardiovascular disease because it will cause cholesterol and all of that. So that is the reason we need to take omega-3 fats more and less of omega-6. And omega-6 is in most all of these vegetable oils, cottonseed, corn, sunflower, safflower, grapeseed, and hemp and walnut too, but those are good. So anyway, so cut down on all of the vegetable oils and even peanut oil, and just sesame, coconut, ghee, butter, flaxseed, fish oil. So omega-3, I just skipped it for some reason. So omega-3 is in flaxseed oil and fish oil. So if you don't mind, you should be taking fish oil tablets, even if you're a vegetarian and if you're a non-vegetarian, because none of us consume that level of omega-3. And a lot of people these days do not tolerate fishes which have high level of oils. So people want to eat these lighter fishes because of the heavy taste of those fish. So why not take a supplement of omega-3? Omega-6 is also an essential fat, but it is we are getting it from all over the place. So please do not ever think about trying to balance it and try to eat some of that. What are the good recommended fats that I was talking about? Olive oil, as I said, it does not get oxidized at high heat. Sometimes the oil will smoke, but doesn't mean that the smoking of olive oil means that it has become rancid. So unlike what was spoken about olive oil, it is found that it does not get affected that much by heat. I do my shallow frying also in olive oil. It is an omega-9 oil. So as polyunsaturated fat, it is neutral. It is neither something you want or you hate. But the advantage of olive oil is that it is full of polyphenols, as I said, and those are protective compounds. They protect you from inflammation, and they have seen in, again, many studies, because there were so many studies I did not, I would just be reading those out. But they found in studies that I think they made 3 groups of people and followed them over 5 years or so. And one group of people, they told them to eat a lot of olive oil. Of course, we probably cannot eat so much. They were every week giving them 1 liter bottle of olive oil, and they had to bring the bottle back and take another one every week. That quantity. The second group was given lots of nuts. I think the same quantity as the oil, and maybe oil and nuts or something like that. And the third was on a low fat diet. And as you know, from whatever I have spoken so far, the people who were on a low fat diet were doing extremely badly health wise. But what was more astounding is that the olive oil group had actually reversed a lot of their health issues, cardiovascular issues, compared to even the nut group. So it turned out to be even healthier than the people who were eating nuts. So and I'm just sharing information. It is your choice, but that is how it is. So I shifted mostly to olive oil. We eat a little bit of coconut oil sometimes. I do eat MCT oil. I have a bottle of avocado oil, which is quite expensive. So I just bought it for the fun of it to see how it is, because it is again another non-inflammatory oil, and it does not taste like olive oil. Like olive oil has a slight taste. So if I want to make my mayonnaise at home, I wanted something which is neutral, and that's the reason I use avocado. But otherwise, it is slightly unaffordable for India. Coconut oil is great. It has a good smoking point. It has polyphenols, but very low as compared to olive oil. Sesame seed oil is, again, it has omega-6, but it has been shown to have polyphenols, and they have been shown to be anti-inflammatory. So that is the positive, and that's the reason to include it. And they've also seen that it reduces BP. So if you have high BP, you can include 1 or 2 tablespoons of sesame seed oil in your meals. It also has a high smoking point, so it is safe at higher temperatures. So this is also another oil that you can use for cooking. It is almost flavorless, so it doesn't affect any of the flavors. Like coconut oil has a slight flavor. If you're not used to it, you may not like it. The other good oils are palm oil, perilla seed oil, and hemp seed oil. Now, these are not easily available in India. Palm oil is not the hydrogenated kind that is unhealthy. This is the red palm oil, which is not available in India. I've looked and looked and looked, because it's such an attractive color. The oil itself looks red, so I wanted to add it to my gravies. It's used in African cuisines a lot, and they put it on top and it just makes everything look so good. But it's not available in India. But I just wanted to tell you, so I put it here. Hemp seed oil is available, but it's slightly bitter. I have bought it, and now I don't know how to use it. It's also expensive, but I am going to use it someday. Then our trusty old ghee. Ghee is good. Have it for certain things that you want to cook in ghee, because like I said, dietary saturated fat does not affect anything. So use ghee, butter, and I forgot to, put the enter key. So it's butter separate, and almond oil. Almond oil, of course, we won't cook with. So almond oil, walnut oil, you can just drizzle. Omega-3 should be taken as, tablets, capsules. The other thing is you can take vitamin E or omega-3, and of course, I think most of you are vegetarians, so let me not talk about it. Forget it. Then there's MCT oil, which helps in making ketones. So even while you're eating this is actually a hack that I wanted to talk about a little more in detail. MCT oil is expensive, but it is something that you can take while you're fasting, because it increases the number of ketones in your body. So it directly makes ketones. What it does is that sometimes, even in the presence of few carbs, if you're taking MCT oil, it fools your body into thinking that you're making ketones and you're in ketosis and you're still in the fasting state. So if you're trying to do a more flexible kind of keto, where you get the benefits of keto diet while enjoying a few carbs, then adding MCT oil will help your body still think that you're in ketosis. But you cannot just start, increasing the number of carbs like anything. You want to basically eat a few carbs. And if you're taking MCT oil along with that, that's a hack that will help you. It also fuels your brain, the ketones. So it is good for you. It is helpful in losing weight. Flaxseed oil is good. It's got omega-3s. Hemp seed oil is good, but again, I don't know who and where we find it. And as I said, organic non-GMO canola oil, which I don't think will be available in India. I have looked, I haven't found it, but why not just eat olive oil, because that is the most healthy. Olive oil is something that is full of polyphenol. So the other oils have their own benefits, but the polyphenol, which is the most anti-inflammatory, and it just helps live long. Because coming back to the blue zones, that is another very, very common factor that they've seen, is that the people in the blue zones, I think 3 of the blue zones, they eat about, again, a liter of olive oil a week, each person. So which is like 10 tablespoons or something, which is high. But if you're eating something that is anti-inflammatory and helpful, and if you're eating so much oil, just imagine how little food you're eating. And that food, if you eat, is the most nutritious. Like you're eating some vegetables, you're eating a little bit of beans, you're eating salads, and a lot of oil. It's going to fill you up, right? And you're eating only the best food. And they eat a little bit of pasta. So as Americans started, cooking and selling pasta, Italians were never eating it in that quantity. So, they'll eat, and there will be some days that they will eat that much, but it was mainly olive oil, vegetables. If you see, they marinate a lot of vegetables like olives, and all of these are good. Artichokes are good for you. So all of these vegetables are also in oil, and they will use some kind of a bread, white bread, and they will dip it in the oil and eat it. So that was their meal, but they've seen that the most common factor was loads of olive oil in most of these blue zones. Bad fats, as I said, sunflower oil, soybean oil, corn oil, safflower oil, rice bran oil, peanut oil. Peanut oil, I think, is because of the lectins, but other than that, all of these oils are coming from sources which are not fatty. So if, other than the research that has happened on how they are inflammatory, also they get rancid and oxidize very quickly. That is one reason. But the bottom line for all of these, if you observe, is sunflower, soybean, vegetable oil, all of these things are not going to naturally have a lot of oil or fat. So it is the presence of a factory that has helped us use any of these oils. And I think that is a reason enough to not use those oils. I'll just take, if there's a question. You use rice bran oil. So I, on the safer side, want to say not to use rice bran oil. If there is any particular reason for you to like it, I don't know. If you traditionally eat coconut oil, then have coconut oil ghee, and sesame seed oil is also good. So yeah. Now here I have included a few recipes because I use this to eat a lot of oil. Because especially in of course, Indian food also can be oily. So sometimes I do drizzle oil on my cooked vegetables also. But if you're eating oil drizzled on something, you get that oily feeling in your mouth. Sometimes you're not comfortable. So for me, this is a vehicle to put in a lot more oil into my body. And as I have said before, I've always kept some hummus ready in my fridge. So I'll soak the chickpeas or the chole the night before, cook it in the pressure cooker. So I try to soak all my beans for 24 hours or at least 8 hours, but 24 hours preferably. Cook it in the pressure cooker. And somebody asked me repeatedly about the recipe. So that is why I'm saying. And this is easy because then after that, you just throw everything in a blender and you have to, while it is warm, you want to use the chickpeas so that they blend easily. And you add some roasted sesame seeds. The recipe is here, or tahini, which is a paste of sesame seeds, and sesame seeds are good for you. So tahini is delicious, and once you start liking it, you put it in everything. Like you can make so many sauces using tahini. Tahini with a little bit of salt, garlic, and water. Even that is a great sauce. Anyway, then I put half a cup of olive oil because the beans and the tahini will take in the oil. Okay, it takes in a lot of oil. But you can put less if you want. This is not a hard and fast recipe. 2 to 3 cloves of raw garlic, 1.5 tablespoon of lemon juice, 1 teaspoon of cumin powder and salt. And you can vary these as per your liking. Blend all of this into the smoothest paste. Take it out in a whatever box. And then I also top it off with olive oil again. You can put some herbs if you want, like dried mint, and you can put roasted peppers. You can even put a few chickpeas, which you had boiled, chole on top. You can put some meat on top, and this can be served. So it can be served as a dip. So if you make any of my low carb rotis, you can eat this with that, with a little bit of meat. So what happens is you have eaten little meat and you still get the satisfaction. And this is extremely filling because it's full of olive oil. It's loaded with olive oil and chickpea and sesame. And trust me, when you mix, blend it in the mixer, the olive oil completely gets mixed. So you won't be able to feel the feeling of oil when you're eating it. So sometimes I'll just take it in a bowl, and I said this before I eat it. I also make this kind of a hummus with other beans. So sometimes I just boil beans and I use some in a soup or some other preparation, and I keep some and I make a hummus out of it just to put loads of olive oil and eat it. Another recipe to eat olive oil is basil pesto. So this is a basic recipe that I'm telling you, but you can make this with any kind of herb of your choice. So you can make this with cilantro, that is coriander leaves, or basil, or you can make it with, I don't know, mint, but mint will be very bitter. So no, not in the Indian mint, but there is sweet basil. I don't know if you can make it with tulsi, but I make it generally with basil or coriander. So this is just a chutney with some wonderful ingredients added to it. So, okay, in the previous recipe, okay, right, okay. So in this, yeah, so 2 cups of basil leaves, you add walnuts in that, or pine nuts, or if you want, you can add macadamia nuts. Cashew nuts taste really good, but I'm against using cashew nuts, but they taste really good in this. So I generally add walnuts because walnuts is among the best nuts to have for your brain, for omega-3 and all of that. So it looks like your brain, so eat it. So add walnuts to that, half a cup of Parmesan cheese. If you don't want to buy Parmesan cheese, which is delicious, then you can add any strong, healthy cheese. So what I mean by healthy is A2 cow's milk cheese. And as I said, Humpy is the brand where you can buy that. I don't know many more brands which do that. So sometimes I even add the goat cheese that I had talked about. You can add any cheese of your choice, whatever you like, and add a little bit at a time and see if you want more. Then 2 to 3 cloves of garlic, lemon juice, cumin powder. No, not cumin powder in this. I think it came. So I'm going to change the PowerPoint anyways. So salt, and then 1/4 cup of olive oil. Since it is just leaves, it doesn't take that much oil. So if you can put more oil, because basil pesto always have a lot of flowing oil. So there's nothing wrong with putting even a liter full of oil. It's your choice. But I'm just saying like 1/4 cup of olive oil. Again, this is a great pesto or a chutney. Pesto basically means chutney, which can go on top of noodles. So any of your low carb noodles, this can be used in a low carb wrap. So you put your wrap, or the roti that I'm talking about, you put your basil pesto, you can put some lettuce leaves, and then you can put any of your proteins. So beans, you can make a bean paste, just like hummus, but without adding too many flavors. And then you can put, onions, you can put some tomatoes if they are peeled and nice. You can put cucumber if it is peeled and you remove the seeds. Add this is a vegetarian version. Obviously the non-vegetarian people know that they can add meats to it and chicken to it. So so it's versatile. These are the recipes that one of them is always in my fridge, because this can be eaten with a lot of things, and I even like to eat it just like that. So the last part of it, I'm always licking my box, and I never waste any olive oil, because try to buy the best oil you can, and best means expensive sometimes. So yeah, so the last one is the red pepper dip, and as I said, hummus can be made with any beans of your choice. Red pepper dip can be made with any peppers of your choice. And what I do is, all the peppers, as you know, should be roasted to remove the peel and the seeds. If you have not done it, let me talk about the process. This can be done in the oven by putting oil on the peppers and putting them in the oven till they are charred from the outside. Then you cover it up and keep for some time. The peel will come off. Cut it, remove the seeds, and that is how you want to use it. Now, red pepper is the most delicious because it's sweet, it's fruity, it's lovely. If you've never had it, try it out. So use that roasted bell pepper, then 5 again walnuts. In this place again, you can use almonds soaked and peeled, or you can use pine nuts or macadamia nuts, any nuts of your choice. 1/4 cup of olive oil, garlic, salt, and you can add cheese to it if you want, and you can add something spicy. So a red chili pickle is what I've written here, because it is fermented and chilies have lectins, so just to make it slightly healthier. But frankly, I myself eat it sometimes. It's not like I don't eat any of these things 100% of the time. And let me see any question. These recipes are perfect. Almost all are available. Yes. Any questions? Now we've come to the end of the topic.
These are fava beans which I bought it.
Oh, even I have fava beans. They're delicious. And I made, I guess I told you that I made hummus with that too. Fava beans. It's delicious. Yeah. And I think in Turkish cuisine, they make the hummus with this, but they add a little bit of sweet because it's slightly, you can't call it bitter, but they traditionally add a little bit of sweet. But I liked it. I like the slight, I wouldn't say bitter.
Bitter.
I don't want to discourage anybody, but it has that flavor that I like. Yeah. And this is the opportunity to, explore different beans. Like another bean that is my favorite is masoor, which is actually a lentil with the cover. It is almost meaty tasting, and I've shared the recipe on my channel. I make this wonderful burger patty with it. So what I do is I soak these beans, and then when I'm cooking it, I cook it in a strainer. So you don't put it in water. You put it in a pressure cooker, but you put water at the bottom, and then you put it in a strainer so that it's not sitting in water. And so when you cook it, you get the beans really dry. And then I add a bunch of things. I add a little bit of psyllium husk to hold it together. I've put vegetables, I'll put greens, I'll put coriander, everything under the sun that you think is healthy. You put it in it. And then I made patties and I fry it in olive oil, and they're delicious. So if you're not eating carbs, you don't have to use a bun. You can just put it in a lettuce wrap, like a lettuce leaf, and put it. And, one of our pestos, some salad kind of thing, like onions and lemon juice, and it's delicious because masoor beans are anyways quite delicious, especially the ones with the cover. And then that can be done with tofu also, but then these days I try to not eat tofu since I realize that it's not a cooked product. So that is that. And then these fermented beans, like miso soup. Then there's a couple of other fermented soya bean products that are easily available these days in the market. They are also quite delicious to make soups from. So if you have any of your favorite soup bases, which are healthy, of course, then you can add all the vegetables that you want. I add tomatoes. It's almost like a minestrone soup, if you guys know. So onions, tomatoes, garlic. And when I say tomatoes, always like peeled and de-seeded. That, and then beans and all kinds of vegetables. So you can add celery to it if you like, and add cabbage, fill it up with vegetables, and add a little bit of cheese on top, and everything tastes good. And don't forget the olive oil, because olive oil goes into this. You can put a lot of olive oil also and eat it. So that's another favorite recipe. I think we are done. Nobody has any questions. So thanks for being here and have a good night. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Sonal. Lovely session.
Thank you. Thank you.